Hello everyone, and welcome to the grand return of the most popular LP upon my channel, and that is Team Fortress 2, a highly requested LP that I would revisit, and I couldn't agree more, because there's definitely a lot of things I need to cover, weapons in particular, but there's a whole bunch of other content that has been added over this game. So I'm basically going to aim in this LP to be just for people who are just entering into the game, so it's mainly going to be just pub play. If you're coming in here to get my 2 cents in terms of like competitive stuff like Highlanders 6v6, this is not the place for you because I personally never had experience in those competitive environments, so you're much better to having to take a look at some other videos in case you're wanting to get some info on that. But no, this is mainly going to be stuff for pubs. I'm going to be reviewing all the classes, all the weapons, take a look at a variety of the game modes and maps, and I'm going to aim not to repeat any maps, so just so you can get a good idea of like a variety of maps so you can get yourself into. Now this is going to be just a simple intro video, and if you want to just get straight into the action about what stuff I have to say about the classes, you can skip this video because this is mainly going to be a very tutorial-esque sort of video, so you can pretty much skip this. But in case if you want to stay, I'll be covering your HUD stuff, any kind of custom HUDs you want to put into, briefly take a look over the controls such as like mouse sensitivity, video settings, the advanced multiplayer stuff. We'll also take a look at some of the like backpack trading and like item quality sort of a thing. And lastly, taking a look at the config files. So with that out of the way, let's begin. So here we are in the main menu of the game, what it should look like by default. There are some custom mods if you decide to get one that does alter the main menu in some way, but for you guys starting out, this is pretty much what it will look like by default. So we got a bit of a selection here. First off, we got the Play Multiplayer, which will allow you to select whatever game mode that you would like to play in, and then just immediately hop right into a game. There's also an Advanced Options tab, so you'll be able to select your preferences on the type of server you'll like to hop into. There's also the MVM option to play co-op with people, to fight against robots. There's also a server browser option, so if you want to find a server manually. There is a training option that'll offer 2 different training modes. First one being basic training to give you the ins and outs of the class, and second one, offline practice, so you'll be able to train your skills against bots. And here we have the items button, which will allow you to view your backpack as well as a bunch of other stuff. But we'll take a look at that a little bit later. And then there is the Manco shop, which where you can do some microtransactioning to get a little bit of items, such as weapons or hats, but there's also some items that you can only get from the shop, such as keys to open up your crates. And if you have a little bit on the creative side, you may as well go ahead and mess around with the replays, as well as taking a look at the Steam Workshop aspect of the game. Throughout this video series I'm going to have a custom HUD installed so that it's not going to look exactly the same as yours, but default HUD should be good enough to get the most general information out to you. But if you want to go for a different look, you may well go ahead and download a custom HUD. I personally use Eve HUD, so if you ever want to get yourself the Eve HUD, you can go ahead and Google search for that, or better yet, I'll just go ahead and just leave the link in the video description so that you can go ahead and download it yourself. So now let's take a look over into the basic controls of the game. So you pretty much just have your standard stuff such as your movement, and please ignore the SXZC movement because I'm weird because I have my movement keys down a row, but generally it's going to be the WASD keys, that is by default of course. And really this is all just general stuff such as voice communication, some chat or team messages, all that good stuff. There might be a couple of stuff in here that won't be self-explanatory when you get into the game. Probably for example like Inspect Target. Inspect Target is just when you hover your cursor over a player, and when you hit that button, you'll see a little like pop-up on your screen that tells what the player is using in terms of a weapon or what cosmetic that they're wearing. That's pretty much what it is. You know, some of it can be a little bit confusing, but other than that, things like in class-specific skills, it should be pretty easy. Pretty much all the stuff by default should be good enough to get you started. But here, we'll take a look over into the advanced option. Now in the advanced option, you have 2 things that you will want to check so that make the games a little bit more smooth. definitely fast weapon switch. And fast weapon switch makes it so that you don't get yourself the selection menu of weapons over on the right hand side or left hand or wherever it is. Basically, you click less buttons when it comes to fast weapon switch. As soon as you hit said button that corresponds to the key number, like you press 1 for primary, you get it out immediately, instead of having to click once again to confirm switching out. It just makes so that things are a lot more swift when going through battle and all that good stuff. And lastly, there's Enable Developer Console. By pressing the tilde key, it will bring up this box for you to type in certain commands, even to change certain values without you navigating through the options menu. But yeah, that's all we have for this section here. Now, the mouse sensitivity. Mouse sensitivity is quite of a mixed subject, so to speak, or something, because people are always pondering what is the best setting, when really, there really isn't. It really all ties to what your muscle memory is and how comfortable it is for you. And really the best type of advice that I can give you is, one, there's general practice with playing a game, so to speak, or whatever previous FPS experiences that you have using the mouse and keyboard. But in this game in particular, it's just really just coming down to the right setting, what's good for your muscle memory. Having raw input enabled, which means the game directly reads from your device, so it's a lot more smoother in control. And really the setting should basically be low enough so that you can make good, accurate shots, especially when you're playing classes such as like Scout or Sniper, because they're all aim dependent. But at the same time, high enough so that you'll be able to do, in a smooth wrist motion, do a 180-degree turn so you can check your back. And that's mainly just so that you'll be able to be generally aware of your surroundings, especially when you're looking for spies. So that's the advice I can give for the mouse. Now, video settings. Video settings is something that I want to cover because it could make or break your experience in terms of like how good or bad your computer is. Now, here we have all the good stuff. I pretty much have everything all maxed out, pretty much. Well, except for anti-aliasing. I don't really need that all cranked up. But it really all depends on how good your computer is, of course. But if you're one of those people who has a very low-end PC, especially if you're playing on a laptop, there is something I do want to direct to you, which is like Chris's FPS config files. You can pretty much do a simple Google search, or I can just put you a link in the video description so you can get yourself a copy of that. And once you download it, you'll just have to make sure you edit the file so that it changes to .config, so that you'll be able to open up the config file and take a look what's inside. And there's several copies of the scripts, such as like max frames, max quality, or like DX9 frames or something like that, something that will suit your needs. And in those said settings, we'll be able to do additional tweaks to your game so that it'll be able to run a whole lot better, especially for you laptop users, because it'll help out immensely. And sure, if you're going for something like high frames, sure, the graphics are going to look like Doom or something along those lines, or like an N64 sort of graphics or crappy like that, but at least you'll be able to play a whole lot better. So I do recommend, if you're one of those people who really want to get like high frames and such, definitely check those scripts out. It'll help out a lot. One last thing to mess with in this menu, and that is the field of view. Go ahead and turn that all the way up. This will allow you to view a lot more of your general surroundings as you play the game, so highly recommend that. And now the multiplayer stuff. And now here we have the Crosshair. Crosshair, I personally actually have a config file for these ones as well, where I have set to each class, and whatever weapon that I'm using uses a different crosshair. But all across classes, I always have it at green, just because it's pretty much the only color that can stand out above all other colors within the game. And of course, you have your spray image right here. Yeah, I have a little image of like Eddie with a jetpack. That's actually something that I have traced, that I used in like Adobe Illustrator or something. I don't know. It's just something that I was bored one day. So that's my own custom image. And now the last part is we're going to take a look at the multiplayer advanced stuff. So here we have some like combat options, class specific stuff, and all that good stuff. So let's take a look here. Now, this is the reason why you pretty much won't be using a reload button anytime soon, which is automatically reload weapons when you're not firing. This is definitely useful when you're just like out of combat situations, or you're just too lazy to hit the reload button. It just definitely optimizes, you know, like being able to reload on a whim without having to care. There are certain specific classes or weapons that could get can get in the way whenever a character is like reloading their gun, especially with the spy. With the use of his revolver, it can definitely obscure your view when he automatically reloads. But I do have a config file for that, so it automatically hides it whenever he shoots or reloads or something like that. But if you're one of those people who just don't want to see like their weapons in front of your faces, and you have a good idea of like what weapon you're using just out of memory, then you can pretty much go to all the way down here, which is like draw view models, so you won't see like their weapon in their hands or anything like that. Mainly for like people who are pro in the game, pretty much. Fast weapon switch we already covered. Now this is something that I did in the first Let's Play that I personally turned off at first, but I couldn't be any more wrong. But you definitely want to have this turned on, having hit sound every time you injure an enemy. Now by default it brings up a dinging noise, which I didn't like, but thanks to with a little bit of time, there was several like hit sounds that people have made, and I personally went for a hit sound that was from Quake, which I don't know how to describe it, but it sounds like this. Something very short, simple like that. And the immense usefulness of having a hit sound just means that you guaranteed that you've hit someone even when you're not even looking at something. For example, if you're playing soldier, you shoot rockets around a corner just to inspect. If an enemy's around a corner, you would know. Useful stuff like that. Same can be said about display damage done as text over your target. That can definitely help giving a good idea of what you're going to be getting yourself into in terms of a battle. Like if you know that you hit a good meat shot when you're playing as a scout, like 100 damage, then you'll know the second shot is going to kill someone, depending on what class you're going up against. There's also a setting to play a sound when sniper rifle is fully charged. Now class specific stuff, there's the spy with a concise disguise menu that pretty much condenses the use of the disguise kit to only down to 3 buttons for you to press, having the first 3 buttons having to be designed to a set of classes like offense, defense, or support, and then pressing that again, 1, 2, 3 will be whatever classes are inside a group. I personally never use it because I already have like a config file for me selecting disguises anyway, so that's up to you. Now there is one important setting you want to have turned off, and that is for being able to survive like a lot of stuff. Sniper rifle will resume after firing a zoom shot. The reason why you want to have that turned off is that if there was a situation where you get ambushed and you fire a shot, you do not want to resume again, because that's just going to leave you more vulnerable, especially when you get encountered by a scout. You immediately want to get out, and not having that resume like delay you any further. You just want to get the hell out of there. Minigun continues healing without holding down the fire button. I previously said that I say you can just have that off, because I always find it comfortable just holding down the button to continuously heal people, but I pretty much go either way now actually, so have that turned on or off, that's up to you. For medic, display a marker over the player that you're healing. I personally never notice the marker whenever I'm healing someone, but I just have that turned on anyway, just so that you're guaranteed to know who you're healing, especially when you're in a group of people like you don't know who you're healing. Another useful one to have is your teammates automatically call out. Now, you'll guarantee to come across people who just call out medic for like absolutely no reason. Some people who do call medic for a reason, but then there's some people who just don't call out medic at all. That's where this comes in. So you have it here so that whenever they hit a certain percentage of health, the automatically creates a little like beeping like radar sort of a thing, so that you'll know like who to heal. Very, very useful to know who to keep alive right out on the battlefield and such. In fact, I have another config file so that you'll be able to use this as a radar, so to speak, so you'll know like where your teammates are around even when they're not at low health. So for HUD options, you have yourself like the normal sized HUD or the minimal HUD. This is what comes with either by default or custom HUDs really. And minimal HUD just sounds what it sounds like, makes things smaller, denser, so that you'll be able to see more on the screen. But there could be some other custom HUDs that pretty much do that already, so having this on or off really doesn't matter. But in terms of default, it really does help out having things more condensed. Colorblind mode is pretty much what it is that if there's certain like colors in the game that it's hard for you to differentiate, that's something you can turn on. I think one of them could be like the Girardi. Whenever someone's Girardi, you can't really tell if like they're red or blue, something like that. I'm not sure. I never really take a look at that. Next one, glow effect. This is pretty much useful if you're playing on the payload game mode stuff, so that you'll have a general rough idea on where the cart is, especially, I think it works on either team to know like where the payload is really. Use player model in the class HUD. It pretty much displays your whole character model, having to include like whatever weapon that you're holding as well as whatever cosmetics you're wearing. So it's just a neat little cute thing to see on the screen really. Now view model field of view. Now don't get confused with the FOV slider that we saw earlier, because this one specifically is to see how much of the character's arms and weapon we see in front of us. So as the slider goes up, the further away it is from our face. So pretty much just crank it up all the way up or have it lower however you see fit. Let's see what else to speed things up here. Pyrovision, yeah, that's something that you can just tweak with on your own, something like that. Roam vision, that's for MVM stuff. Replays, don't know much about replays since I never tinkered with it. See, some performance stuff, having disabled HTML message of the days. Typically, most of the servers that you're going to see that you're going to join might have those such things. And if you don't want to be bothered with it, just go ahead and disable it. Automatically respawn after load changes in respawn zones. That can definitely help out if you're wanting to, you know, change your stuff on the fly when you're in spawn. Suicide after choosing a player class, you pretty much want to have that turned off because you really don't want to, like in the middle of a combat situation, like god damn it, like okay, I'll switch to soldier, but then you suddenly explode, just so you can go back to spawn and become one. When really it's best that you switch to soldier whenever it's convenient for you and when you're all done with something. You can pretty much just type in like kill into the console if you want to like forward spawn and become said class or whatever. Draw a few models, which is what I've already stated, that if you want to have that turned on, so you can see like your you holding the weapon. Disable sprays. Typically, if you come across sprays that are like rather inappropriate, so you won't see other players like images or something like that, I guess for the sake of this LP, I'll have that turned off just so that things don't happen by accident. Whatever kind of lewd images pop up. Let's see. Close server browser. Synchronize Steam Cloud. That's okay. Save screenshots to Steam. And some pop-up alerts. And yeah, that's pretty much standard stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much a mouthful for that advanced option stuff. Phew. Yeah, now that we're all done with that one, let's take a look a little bit into the item stuff in the game, such as the variety of items that you get. So, as you are playing the game, that you'll slowly over time, pretty much each time that you die whenever you're playing the game, or whenever that you check your pop-ups when you look into the main menu, you'll get random weapon drops. And it could range from just standard stuff. You can even find random hats randomly. Or even more rarer for stuff, for items that drop, you might even find a chemistry set. Ooh, chemistry sets are nice. For like collector stuff and all that good stuff. But anyway, yeah, generally when you play the game, you're going to get a lot of item drops. It's mostly just going to be weapons, really. So right here in my backpack, we can see a variety of items that I've accumulated over the game. And a lot of them range from pretty much are labeled as like standard, or what they're called uniques. Unique is not as special as the way it sounds. It's just a common level of items that you get throughout the game. There's also stuff like vintage. There's also genuine. This is also some special like skins for said weapons, like a festive like Wrangler, or especially a strange festive. That's definitely worth a lot, especially this one. I was pretty lucky to get that one. There's also like some kill streak stuff that you can get from playing MVM. Oh, what else? Oh yeah, this is definitely the most notable thing that I got from MVM, the Australian black box. And so outside of combat, pretty much outside the main game, there's a pretty huge trading incorporated into the game, having people getting a lot of like rare, like collectors worthy of like items to get, like vintage or strange or collector's items itself, really. But most namely, people like to go after are unusuals. Unusuals is pretty much just the same thing as the headgear, but they have an added like special effect items on them visually. Something like some sort of like green smoke, or rotating dollar bills around your head, or a skull, or just a bunch of sparkles, you know, things like that. And it's pretty much what a lot of trading enthusiasts aim for when playing this game. Like, get yourself that Sunbeam killer exclusive or something like that. Yeah, the trading stuff can be very, very involved, very crazy. But in my personal experience, I'm not that much of a trader. In fact, I don't even have an unusual yet, so not really all that gung-ho in terms of getting like an unusual or something like that, but just enough so that I can get myself some stranges, really. Right now, just only for the medic. So yeah, this is all pretty much standard stuff. If you want to take a look more into trading, you can always just take a look at some other videos to see what kind of stuff that you can get your hands on. But that's pretty much it with like trading and items and sort of stuff. And now the next session we'll take a look at is the crafting stuff. So if you happen to have a bunch of duplicate weapons and you don't know what to do with them, what you basically do is that you take those weapons and break them down to scrap metal by smelting class weapons. Using two weapons of the same class, they'll give you some scrap metal. And by combining them, we'll give you some reclaimed metal, and the next tier will be refined metal. Metals on their own are pretty much like a bit of a tool to help you fabricate like other weapons or hats, so to speak. Even such like class tokens and slot tokens to assist you in trying to get a randomly generated weapon or hat, so to speak, with those things. But mainly what people do when they break down their weapons is that they use them for trading purposes, because that is the main form of currency in the game. But if you're ever interested in trying to fabricate a weapon that for some reason you just couldn't get into a drop, that's what this is for. This here in the Custom Items tab is a huge laundry list of weapons for you to go ahead and fabricate. However, it's a lot more cheaper to actually go ahead and trade with somebody else, since it's usually like a scrap or less to get a certain weapon, just because it's so commonly found nowadays. So having to go through these crafting stuff, really not all that important. And right here in this next tab is some rare items, such as fabricating the headgear. That's what this is for. And for some reason, Fabricate Bonk Helm has its own little recipe, and no other like headgear sense. Well, except for a set headgear. But and then the last one is special, such as some sort of like Halloween related stuff, a power-up canteen for MVM. Or if you wanted things make a little bit more quick, you can always go to your custom blueprint stuff and having to drag like items in here yourself, so you don't have to use like the preset stuff, I guess. And next one right here is the Menko catalog, which will take a look at all of the weapons within the TF2 universe. Have it all nicely categorized by weapons headgear, by class, certain stamp items, tools, craft items, all that good stuff. And then lastly, to initiate your trading, while you're in the middle of a game, you can go click on current server, but take a look at the list of people that are on the server. Look in your friends list to see if they want to trade, and then go to Steam profile if you want to manually type in the name of the person. And now here we are in the last part of the intro video, where we're going to take a look at the config files. Now, I wasn't able to go so much in depth in terms of the config files in the last LP, since it was so brief, because I only had like 15 minutes to squeeze all that information. But this one I got a little bit of leeway, so we can take a look at this. So what we got here is that if you go to your config files, if you look into the upper left, you'll see a folder path to where you can find all the configuration, config files. You'll be able to see like several config files that are pretty much generated when you first load up the game, pretty much. And pretty much one of them that probably won't be generated on the first, that you're pretty much going to have to make yourself, is this auto execute. How TF2 loads up the configurations is that it first takes looks at the config.config, yeah, pretty redundant, first, which pretty much shows a list of all the bindable stuff within the game. And then immediately follows up by auto-execute.config. So if there was a folder or a file that you want to have edited, this will be the one, the auto-execute. Now in auto-execute, there's several things that I've taken from like several different scripts that I have it configured to my liking. Most namely, this here is the Chris's high quality configuration, like I've mentioned before. And I've tweaked it to however I see fit for myself, having max frames being up to 132, having to display the frame rate over in the upper right, having the good connection here, since what I mostly have is a good connection. Or if you have a bad connection, you can also enable this one as well, whatever works for you. There are some of the graphical settings. Not really going to go into detail what each one does, but it's pretty much however you see fit. You might be able to tell the difference if you were to compare the high quality settings to like high frame rate. Like some of the features might be turned off, such as like detailed distance are like turned down. There's like no bump mapping, or like no ragdoll colliding, or like no ragdogs at all. Like when you kill someone, their corpse immediately disappears. Something that whatever works for your PC that's able to handle it pretty much. So if we go a little bit further down, this is pretty much like the end of the Chris's FPS config, so to speak, coming down to pretty much some of the settings that I always have on whenever I first load up the game. I always have it the desired FOV, the view model FOV, having a minimal HUD, the volume, music volume turned off, class auto kill. I'm guessing that's whenever you select a class and you auto suicide or something like that, which I have turned off. Combat text, which is how much damage you've done. Auto resume, which is for that sniper thing. Automatic medic calling out is also that target marker, which I also have turned on. I mean, I really shouldn't have to do that. If I have like no need to change it, then there's probably no reason for me to have it here. But one thing I do have down here though is these key bindings for the numpads. And I have each numpad number corresponding to each class, like 1 for Scout, 5 for the Heavy, 9 for Spy. And this is pretty much whenever you're sitting in respawn, you'll be able to hit the corresponding button to switch to certain classes, so that you don't have to bring up the class selection menu. If you ever see me load up the class selection menu, chances are I'm only looking at it just to see how many people on our team is having whatever classes that they have. Like if we have like 2 soldiers or no medics at all, I'll be able to tell like what exactly do we need. And this is pretty much other standard bindings. Like I already have this like these bindings here with the secondary, primary, melee, and all that stuff already binded in the other config files, which I shall show you right now. Now these are the config files that are loaded up as soon as you select the class. So I pretty much already have by default the mouse 1 and 2 and 4 having to basically have attack 1 and 2 and the reload stuff. And what you see here is a little bit different in terms of what I have for binds here. So what it's looking at first is pretty much whenever I select my weapon. Here we have what are called aliases. Aliases pretty much take a full string of like commands and put them into a new additional command, basically. So what we have here is like primary. So whenever primary is activated, it'll go to slot 1, which is your primary, and then it'll tell the game to select these certain features, which are my crosshair settings, to be selected for whatever weapon that I have selected. So I guess for example, like the sniper pretty much. You can see right here that I have the crosshair, pretty much all the crosshairs are green. I haven't really changed it, but what I have here is like, when I have the sniper out, I have pretty much a dot, which by crosshair reference, it's a dot. And when I switch on over to something like melee, it switches on over to like a plus sign. So I got things like that just to add a little bit more look to whatever like weapon that I'm using, so it's a little bit different, so to speak. So pretty much for a lot of the classes, it's pretty much all the same, which is just primary, secondary, and melee all binded up, having all the same stuff here, which is like scout, soldier, pyro, demo, heavy weapons, and sniper are pretty much all the same thing. But there are 3 exceptions, which are the engineer, medic, and spy, that have different binds of their own. And this one also uses aliases, in this case being the use of the engineer's PDA, where I have it so that I have bind 4 is sentry, 2 dispenser, 3 entrance, and 1 exit. Kind of doesn't make sense, since you would think bind 1 would be sentry, right, since that's the first one. But I don't know, it's weird. At least for me, I'm not sure. But anyway, the aliases that I have here are like sentry, having to tell it to first destroy the sentry and then start building up a new one. Having this is so that you'll be able to skip using the interface with the PDA whenever you're building stuff, and also you don't have an excuse to use the destroy PDA at all. And this is pretty much a quick way for either me to like immediately destroy the sentry, so I can probably like have my crits when I get to the Frontier Justice, whenever we get to that part. Chances are is that if I want to make a new building, I just want to destroy the old one immediately. So this is pretty much a very quick way in order to do that. For medic here, I have a couple of more key bindings that I have here, especially with the use of my mouse. We have here on mouse 3 is my radar. Is that I'm not sure where I found this script, but basically with radar is that it allows me to make use of the auto calling feature with the classes depending on their health percentage. So whenever I click once onto the radar, it does this auto call alias. Where is it? Oh yeah, right here. So when it says auto call all, it means it makes the color threshold all the way up to 150. So no matter what their health, it'll always ping, no matter what their health is. Auto call default is what I have by default, which is basically at 75% of their health. So whenever I release the button, it goes back down to minus radar, which is the default, which is to whatever I have by default. And then the last one for spy, this is pretty much the most complicated of them all in terms of like how I have key bindings in terms of like disguises, as well as how I auto hide my primary whenever I'm shooting. You can probably find in terms of like auto hiding whenever you shoot your gun. I believe it's one of Stabby's configs. But anyway, yeah, this is a whole bunch of use of aliases so that basically whenever I shoot, it auto hides my arm so I don't have to see the auto reload being like right in front of my face. And whenever things like if I apply my cloak, it brings up my thing again, as well as if I switch weapons or just anything really. Anything other than like shooting would bring back up my my weapon again. And there's also the use of such as binding disguises to certain keys here, which I have is 1 through 9. And what I have here is that if I want to disguise myself on the on my own team, I would hold down the mouse 4 button and then hit the corresponding button to disguise as one of my teammates. Pretty much when you're starting out, you're always wanting to use enemy disguises, but if you're wanting to get a little bit more fancy in terms of like, you know, spy techniques, you would probably want to try a little bit of like the team disguise, so things like that. But this is very like involved here with all this stuff, and there's some additional features which I pretty much don't like, such as something about like auto sap or something. If I wanted to do auto sap, I just pull out the sapper myself and I just click myself. I just don't want it to like auto click my for me or something. I don't even know, but that's pretty much it for the spy stuff. In fact, that's all that I have for config stuff. And with that, that concludes this intro video. Now for class order, it's basically going to be randomized, so you never know what you're going to get. TF2 has done several updates over these years, and it's about time I give my own. So until then, I'll see you out on the battlefield!